equivalent, a moderate stocking rate at the approximate long-term carrying capacity of the country, around 10 hectares per AE, and then moderate stocking at long-term carrying capacity combined with rotational wet season spelling. We've also got 2 flexible stocking strategies where numbers are adjusted based on the availability of forage in a particular year and season. One of these also includes rotational wet season spelling, and the other is just simply flexible stocking on its own. The trial has got large spatially variable paddocks, and that's an attempt to represent conditions on commercial properties. It's grazed by Brahman cross steers, and of course they're managed according to industry guidelines in terms of supplementation. And importantly, we've had a grazier advisory group involved in the trial since before the first animals went on in late 1997. Over the 27 or 28 years of the trial, there's been a huge variability in rainfall. We've had a few very pronounced, very wet years, for example, just like the last year in the years 2011, 2012, but then also some very extended dry years. And 2014-15 was particularly severe and was the 4th lowest rainfall since recordings began in 1910. So we've had a huge range of outcomes there. We've had some very good years with animals belly deep in grass, and also extreme drought situations where we've had to withdraw animals from the heavy stocking rate and feed them hay because there's simply nothing to eat in their paddocks. If we look at the results, firstly, just looking at pasture change, and here this graph is showing the density of perennial grasses, so what we call our 3P perennial grasses, the density after 27 years under the different stocking strategies. You can see straight away that the density is by far the lowest under heavy stocking due to the high grazing pressure. It's markedly higher under the moderate stocking, and then higher still where moderate stocking is combined with wet season spelling. But in both of those strategies, what's adversely impacted them is the fact that stocking rates weren't reduced in the drought according to the treatment. Then you can see in the flexible stocking, the density is very similar to the rotational spell, but there the lack of spelling is also very evident. By far, the highest density of perennial grasses is where there's a combination of flexible stocking with wet season spelling. If we then go into the animal production and economics, and we look at some key indicator variables, firstly, this is the average live weight gain per hectare, or the average beef production per hectare for the 5 different grazing strategies over 27 years. And I've highlighted heavy stocking. Heavy stocking there had on average the highest live weight gain per hectare of all the strategies, and the lowest was under the moderate stocking regime, simply because there weren't the same number of animals. However, that higher live weight gain per hectare under heavy stocking had to be subsidized by drought feeding. And the figures here show that the heavy stocking rate had to be fed with drought feeding, either in the form of molasses or urea, and cattle being pulled off and hay fed in 7 out of the 27 years, compared only to once out of the other strategies. So the costs of that drought feeding obviously feed into the economic outcomes. So if you look at the gross margin per hectare, the gross margin per hectare under the heavy stocking is only half that under the other strategies. And that is due to A, the costs of drought feeding, and secondly, the reduced product value when those animals go to the meatworks. So out of 27 years, the heavy stocking rate ran at a loss 14 out of those 27 years, compared to only 3 in those other strategies. So in summary, heavy stocking is clearly unprofitable. It led to degradation, and it simply is unsustainable. Moderate stocking is far more profitable, but degradation eventually occurs without spelling, and if you don't reduce your stock numbers in drought periods. Flexible stocking is best, but it must be applied in a risk-averse manner. So that means early adjustment of stock numbers if seasonal conditions are declining, and limits need to be set on stocking rates in even the best years, and also increasing numbers cautiously in those good seasons. And lastly, spelling is also essential to maintain pasture condition. So the optimum strategy is obviously flexible stocking combined with wet season spelling. Thank you.